Howard, thank you as always for making time for us. You heard part of what it is that we were saying there, and ESPN News always lands on your doorstep somehow, and people want your opinion on some of this stuff. So walk us through here what it is that we should be paying attention to around here.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I sort of thought that when this happened, I was on the tennis court, to be honest, and then I came back and I saw the timeline blowing up, and I was like, "What happened now? Are we still talking about what happened last week? Or are we talking about what happened now?" So, I mean, I think that both of the comments, both the Nigeria comments and then also the Ohtani comments, it's just bad. I mean, I know that's not very deep to say, but it's bad. But it's also not that surprising. I think that language is an extremely hot button for English speakers. I mean, this goes back. I mean, I was thinking about this. You're thinking about it from a hockey standpoint. Remember back when Bobby Clark was talking about too many Europeans in the NHL. Remember back when Andy Rooney got busted on 60 Minutes when he was talking about how baseball was too hard to follow because there were too many Hernandezes and Fernandezes and too many Latinos in the game. And I remember when I was covering the Yankees, I remember when Brian Cashman took away El Duque's translator because he said he's been in the United States long enough, time to start speaking English. And so this is something that is not unprecedented. It's something that is part of a lineage here. And it really is something that, to me, it was bad no matter what. But I thought that what really struck me about it was the idea, one, I get it, and especially you, Dan. I mean, you get it in Miami, of course. I mean, that's the premier bilingual city in the country. And so, there's a hot button there that people are trying that is going to inflame people. But Ohtani's not even a citizen. I mean, that was the part of this too that really sort of hit me was that Stephen A. crossed so many lines there because you're looking at, this is a global sport. And when you're thinking about how we navigate this country and how we navigate the world, English speakers are the ones that refuse to speak other languages. It's really, we're the problem. He's not the problem. We're the problem.
One of the things that Amin was saying there about the line between an entertainer and a journalist puts the responsibility, when you say we're the problem, on the viewer to be discerning and to make those distinctions.
Well, that's right. And they don't make the distinction. There's no distinction right now between people they look at media. I mean, you want to talk about bastardizing language. People look at media and they blanket everything as media. There's media and there's journalism, and they're not the same thing. They're not even close to the same thing. And so I sort of felt like, Stephen A. in particular, it's one of these responsibilities that we had on ESPN, and it's something that the network really didn't pay nearly enough attention to, that the journalists had to pay a lot of attention to, was making that distinction between whose role is what. It's not all the same.
Howard, what can you tell us about specifically what happened with the dismissal of the Nigerian basketball team? The look of it, because it's not the same thing. He doesn't have to apologize for that. It's simply a bad look. It's not Nigeria isn't getting the apology today. It's Asian Americans and Ohtani and ESPN's viewers that are getting the apology today. But that's a bad day all around. And the Nigeria side of this, what do you do with that?
Well, I think what you do is you have to learn how to multitask a little better than what we're doing. I think that the reason, obviously, there are two things in this that make it more Asian American specific, and that is with the violence in the country against Asian Americans taking place right now. Also, ESPN and MLB, it's a rights holding issue as well. So you're dealing with a business issue. You're also dealing with a societal issue that's taking place in the country as we speak that has real implications in terms of people's safety and the violence taking place in the country. So I get the shift there, or the tilting toward that. But I think it's also, to me, the Nigerian part of it was insulting because of the way we've historically treated Africa it's not a country. We talk about Africa like it's one place. It's not one place. We're specifically talking about Nigeria, and then you look at some of the Barstool comments and some of the other comments out there too, just the blatant disrespect toward them as athletes and as players. And I think that it's something that you see as a specific issue in the NBA, because the NBA is becoming more African and more international now than it's ever been as well. So and also that Nigeria as a place we should obviously have Nigeria on our map. That's Akeem Olajuwon's country. I mean, this is not like it's something like we're not aware of Nigerian basketball. I think that it was more of a hot take and sort of a thing like the United States is not supposed to lose, and we're certainly not supposed to lose there. And it was clumsy, and it looked and felt every bit as bad as it was.
And what you got yesterday was a version of Speak English. English. And I know that it's easiest to learn a language before you're 6 years old. These skill sets that we're talking about to be great at sports at this level require a compulsive and competitive, lopsided personality sculpting to be great against other competitors at what you're doing. And there's the added bonus of it's tough to transition to another country. Drop any of us in China or Japan and see how we do, how quickly at this age, you especially, Stugotz. I love the idea of dropping you specifically in Japan and asking somebody to be great at all these other things and also learn the language to make it easier for us.
Drop me in Washington Heights and see how I do, right? I mean, one of the reasons why I used to go to Guatemala and go to Spanish language school every off season when I was on the beat was because of the massive imbalance. When you're talking to 30, 35, 40% of baseball players, English is not their native language. So you're essentially saying that you cannot communicate with 40% of the game. So you had to make an effort to come reach, at least to be able to do your job, not just to communicate, but just to be able to do your job. You have to be able to speak to those players on their terms. If you want to do the job well, if you want them to trust you, if you want them to understand you, if you want to understand them. And I remember covering the Yankees, and I was not one of those people who was like, hey man, it's time to speak the language, Duke, because I broke that story when I was covering the Yankees with the Record, I believe, and or it was the Herald, whichever one it was. But I remember that because Duque and I were talking about this. He and I used to speak all the time because we used to practice Spanish because I went to Havana. And so it was great talking to him, and it was great being able to reach players at their, on their side of the world. But Mariano Rivera would walk in and tell all the Latino players to speak English. But at the same time, he would tell us to try to learn Spanish. So I kind of got it, but I didn't get it. But you have to, especially that sport, you've got to learn how to talk to players in their space.
Howard, the other thing that makes this so many kinds of complicated, because again, these people are really valuable at what it is that they do, and this transition is hard. But in a tabloid city like New York, or culturally where he comes from, where you have to be, Ichiro is super careful about everything. I think people underestimate how afraid these guys are in a second language to say something that sounds stupid.
You can't do this. I mean, I remember if you asked me to do an interview in Spanish, and like I said, I speak conversational Spanish, and you couldn't put me on camera. I mean, for just the fear of making a mistake. And once that compounds, then you're starting to make fun of players all the time. And it becomes your personality. And these guys are proud as well. Who wants to make a fool out of themselves?
I wanted to talk to you as well outside of sports and the issues of the moment before you get out of here. I've been curious to ask you about this just in general. What is happening in America right now as it regards just the phrase critical race theory, which you can just in the phrasing, right? You can feel the threat in it. Critical, white people can start with, what do you mean critical? Oh, I knew it was going to be about race. And then you throw science in at the end with theory. And it's like, oh, it's just a cluster bomb.
I'm leaving.
It's just a cluster bomb of get out of here. And so the reaction and the way this has been hijacked and weaponized where nobody even knows the definition of it that's arguing against it. I'm just curious as you see this spreading across America and being used as a weapon, what it is that you make of all of that.
I am a gigantic proponent of uncritical race theory. That's my feeling, is that I appreciated Tom Hanks's op-ed in the New York Times a few weeks ago about what we learn, how we learn, where do we learn it. And I remember when I was in Havana, in whatever year that was, 2000, which was the Elian Gonzalez month I was there. I remember going to the Museum of the Revolution, and there's virtually no mention of the United States involvement in World War II in that museum. It was amazing. But once again, there's virtually no mention of the massive, massive Russian sacrifice in World War II when you learn about American history, World War II through American history. So what we learn is it's not just what we learn, but how we learn it and where we get it. And so I'm not surprised by what's taken place in this country. To me, my attitude has always been, when you're in hostile territory, you should expect hostility. We're in hostile territory. This is a hostile country. And think about the juxtaposition of where we are in this country right now. People are talking about this racial reckoning while at the same time the backlash is right in front of your face. All right, suddenly we're talking about Black girl magic and Black excellence and this and that and new people getting jobs and diversity and inclusion, while at the same time telling you cannot teach things in schools. So you're in the middle of a hostile environment right now. I'm completely unsurprised by it. I expect it. I think one of the things that I always talk about with this new generation is that when I was growing up, I was never taught equality. I was taught access. My parents never said you were going to be the same as them. They said they're never going to give you anything. You're never going to get anything close to what you think is fair. So your job is to receive access and to learn on your own terms. And this is an example of that sort of backlash, that you are fighting a hostile space. You're in a very hostile space, and you should treat it as such.
We're doing so much serious stuff with Howard, and he wants to talk about speed, and he wants to talk about tennis, and he wants to argue about whether Christian Yelich was in fair territory.
He's out! Jesus, I don't even understand why this is a question. He's out. He's in fair territory.
So
all right, that's it.
He wants to talk.
Am I wrong on this?
I don't want to talk to you about Christian Yelich's ejection. I want to talk to you about the Shams report right now that Ben Simmons and the Sixers are open for business on Ben Simmons.
It better be.
Shams reporting the Philadelphia 76ers have opened up trade conversations surrounding three-time All-Star Ben Simmons and have engaged with team.
I would also like to announce that I am open for business on all my top shots. Just hit me up. I am open for business.
It still exists.
And all I'm going to say is I'm going to take this moment to apologize to Stugotz. I didn't realize it was the facial hair first, and I didn't know your real name.
Really? You didn't know it was John Wiener, worse than Stugotz?
I did not know that.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
So, I had to take the L on Twitter for that, and I was willing to take it, so I took it.
I don't think people know what you're talking about, and this is why I don't talk Ben Simmons with you. Get out of here.
Ben Simmons has got to go. Awful. Ben Simmons has got to go. He never even made he's supposed to be the best player in the league. And he never even made the tournament in college. I don't get the Ben Simmons love. That's it. Okay.
See you later, Howard. Good talking
tennis
to
takes.
you. I want tennis takes.
I really want tennis takes.
Ashley Barty won her first Grand Slam.
Hey, guys.
See you later, Howard.